ceremonies honoring Ken Caminiti, who was put into the Hall of Fame for the San Diego Padres. His three daughters are about to throw out the first pitch for tonight's ball game and throw to some of his teammates. Trevor Hoffman to the right, Mark Sweeney to the left. They just wrapped up the ceremonies just a few moments ago. They had a beautiful video presentation, a montage of pictures and video from his playing days here in San Diego. And he was the lone inductee into the Padres Hall of Fame. There's Ted Leitner, the radio voice of the Padres. Caminiti's wife, who was surrounded by his three daughters, listening to Ted describe some stories which were fantastic, including one where he said that season ticket holders used to call the ticket office and say they wanted to switch their seats from the first base side to the third base side because they wanted to be closer to Ken Caminiti playing third base. Now, you were a teammate for Caminiti, Ben, and as you said, he was one of the better guys that you met in the game.
For a short period I was, and very thankful that I had the opportunity to play with such a, well, first a great person, great man, and excellent ball player.
So they wrap up those ceremonies as we speak. The Padres relievers are heading to their bullpen. So are the Phillies relievers. Caminiti's career included 121 home runs with the Padres and 239 overall. A two-time All-Star, including the All-Star game in Philadelphia. They showed his home run that he hit in that All-Star game in Philadelphia. And he also won 3 Gold Gloves with the San Diego Padres. Well, the lineup cards are being exchanged at home plate as we speak. Mark McGwire and Mickey Morandini exchanged the lineup cards. On the Phillies lineup card is 22-year-old Jake Thompson, who has just made his way into the dugout in preparation for his first major league start. Watching him in the clubhouse today, he seemed calm, he seemed collected. As he told Murph, he's hoping to get through the butterflies very quickly in the first inning of this ball game. He certainly can lean on a couple of his friends, including Zach Eflin, who made his major league debut earlier this season, and Jared Eickhoff, who made his major league debut last year with the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll take a break. When we get back, well, the first pitch, we'll give you the lineups as well for tonight's ball game between the Phillies and the San Diego Padres. Is out on the mound, just about ready to begin his warm-up tosses for tonight's ball game as he makes the start against the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's take a look at the Phillies lineup, brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Hernandez, Herrera, and Altair are the top 3, and then Maikel Franco, Ryan Howard batting 5th. Cameron Rupp will hit 6th. In the bottom third of Cody Ashe in left field, Freddie Galvis at shortstop, and Jake Thompson out on the mound for the Phils. They will face right-hander Paul Clemens. Clemens is the 28-year-old from Fairfax, Virginia. I guess you can call him a journeyman. He has made 4 starts this year for the Padres. He's 1-2 with an ERA of 4.70. He originally was the property of the Atlanta Braves, then went to the Astros. He's been with the Phillies organization and now picked up by the San Diego Padres.
And he's a guy that loves his fastball. For a guy that's not very overpowering, he'll sit right at about 92 miles an hour. Loves to throw that heater. Almost 70% of the time will he throw that fastball. But since the All-Star break, not too good. 0-2 with a 4.66 ERA.
Time now for our Nissan keys to today's ball game.
Well, for Jake Thompson, take a deep breath and trust yourself. This is just another ball game. I know it's in the big leagues, but it's just another ball game. Odubel Herrera, take it personally. Take that benching personally.
Yeah.
I would say it's something to prove here. And I'd like to see a little bit more production from the bottom of this lineup.
Yeah, and you mentioned Odubel Herrera taking it personally, and Pete, I think, is hoping that he takes it as personally as Cesar Hernandez did earlier this season when he missed the first couple of games of that Minnesota series and then wound up playing in the final game because of an illness to Tommy Joseph, and has been on fire since that ball game. Well, there's Pete. He's hoping his team can get off to a good start against the right-hander Clemens, just to give Jake Thompson a little breathing room. And it'll be left to Cesar Hernandez to start it off. Hernandez 0 for 3 with a walk and a run scored in last night's ball game. Overall hitting .292 with 2 home runs and 26 runs batted in. And now the first pitch of the night from Paul Clemens is taken in there for a strike. It's no balls and 1 strike. We're a little bit late for the start of this ball game. Ceremonies went a little longer, but everybody here was content with that. Breaking ball, and it's 0-2. Now those are 2 high pitches, and if Clemens lives up there, I think he's going to be in trouble as this game moves on, as long as the Phillies can recognize it. There's another breaking ball.
It's a big curveball, not real sharp with the break, but it's a big one.
Clemens started the year with the Marlins, was 1-0 with a 6.30 ERA in 2 games. We mentioned he was with the Phillies for a short time last year. He just struck out Cesar Hernandez to start the ball game. So 1 away. So the opposition hitting .330 against his fastball. That's not good. .284 against his change. That's not good. But the curveball, and it does have some bite to it. Opposition hitting just .102 against it.
And why doesn't he throw it more?
It's an excellent question. Maybe he will, because we've already seen it twice tonight. Odubel Herrera, who came out as a defensive replacement in last night's ball game. Good career numbers against the Padres. Odubel out in front of that first fastball. Literally, it's shocking to say that he's out front of a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, but that ball hadn't really even arrived at the plate when he started his swing. His average is a .284 with 11 home runs, 37 runs batted in. Two. He was watching a lot of film today. His film that he was watching was first on Clemens, but he was also watching some of his swings from earlier this season. I mean, there was a point where he was a .300 hitter with an on-base percentage of over .400 for a long period of time.
He's a walks machine.
Curveball inside, 1-2.
First ball that Clemens has thrown.
Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is John Heinzel of Schwenksville, Pennsylvania. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game. John will win $100. McDonald's mix and match any 2 for just $2.50 on McDonald's McPick 2 menu.
Good luck, John.
Up and in, 2-2. Clemens fidgeting around with his baseball. He does that with each and every pitch. And part of that is because he's trying to make sure the hitters do not know what pitch he's throwing. Mike Everett, the home plate umpire, just got nailed by that foul ball off the bat of Odubel Herrera. And Christian Bethancourt turned around and kind of held him up. Ooh. That is a stunner right there.
See, just by the way the ball caromed off of Mike Everett, it was they do not feel good, especially, well, they never feel good, but you're not expecting it this early on in a ball game.
All right, well, maybe it's gotten out of the way then. Now he's going to have to worry about the rest of the game.
He'll be fine.
Opposite way. upper deck. Another foul ball. So Odubel's getting his money's worth here.
And I don't mind that he's getting all these swings. I know he hits in the cage in batting practice, but it's nothing like hitting in a game. And he hasn't been in a game in quite a while. So all these swings can only benefit him.
This will be the 8th pitch of this at bat. They got to get him back on track, though. Pete Mackanin still feels like he's a 300 hitter, but obviously knows that his swings have not been comfortable recently. Fouls another one off. It just looks like his body, his shifting of his weight is off a little bit.
Can't be good. Left-handed hitter. The sun is right in his eyes right now. Coming from that little pocket window on the left field line.
I don't think he'll close it.
He is looking right at it.
Up. It should be back into the seats. Bethancourt gives it a look, and it is. And it remains 2 balls and 2 strikes. Keep an eye on Mike Everett, the home plate umpire. He was awfully slow going back to his spot after that foul ball. He is the crew chief of this 4-man umpiring crew. Swing and a miss. Back-to-back strikeouts for Clemens. So 2 away here in the top of the first. Yeah, that'll bring Aaron Altair to the plate.
The fastball. Odubel really not even close to that one. Clemens misses his spot. Like he was out in front of that one again.
It does. I think it's more the way he's swinging more than anything else, but it does look like he's just guessing and just swinging. Aaron Altair takes strike 1. Altair in last night's ball game was 1 for 4 with a run scored. He's back over in right field tonight. Phillies really like him in center field. I mean, he can play all 3 of the outfield positions. But Pete was talking today, we were sitting in the office, about just the way his jumps are in center field, just how comfortable they are. No balls and 2 strikes. Breaking ball, and it's 1-2. There may be a point next year where he winds up going to center field. I think the thing that Pete's talked about is if they move him to center field, they have to move Odubel Herrera, who is a second baseman by trade and has learned how to play center field, to one of the corner outfield positions. And they want Odubel to work a little bit more in those corner outfield positions before they make the transition, if they do. To Aaron Altair from Paul Clemens. Chopper over to third. That's a foul ball.
How much do you think what they have in the minor league plays into that?
I think it's going to dictate it, because there's also Roman Quinn, who's an outstanding center fielder, and that may dictate that Odubel goes to left and Altair stays in right, because Roman Quinn probably doesn't have the arm to play, let's say, right field,
right,
and is more of a center fielder. Outside, and it's 2-2. I think it's a good problem to have. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a guy that's a center fielder in ability playing, let's say, right field, if you have 2 other guys that have center field ability playing those other positions.
I see no issues with it.
Yeah. Outside, it's 3-2, and Clemens slipped as he threw that one.
Sounds silly that Clemens has 2 strikeouts, but the Phillies really made him work.
This will be the 21st pitch of this first inning. Chopper back toward the middle, and Alexei Ramirez is up with it. Throws low, dug out by Wil Myers. 1-2-3, top of the first. So the major league debut of Jake Thompson is upon us. We'll have his first pitch when we come back. Team watched the Phils walk away with a victory last night. Let's take a look at his lineup. It's different from last night. Jankowski does lead it off, but Wil Myers, who's primarily been the #2 hitter, is back in the 2-hole. Solarte's third. Alex Dickerson bats cleanup. Jabari Blash will hit 5th. Ryan Schimpf will be 6th. In the bottom third of Bethancourt, Ramirez, and Clemens. They will face the 22-year-old right-hander Jake Thompson, making his major league debut out of Heath, Texas. 21 starts this year in AAA. 11-5 with a 2.50 ERA. Ben, 87 strikeouts, but he can strike batters out.
Yes, he can definitely do that.
First pitch to Jankowski is looped toward left field, and that'll drop in front of Cody Ashley. So Jankowski going right after that first pitch, and it's a leadoff single.
Big league debut, you know what you're going to get there. That's why Jankowski's very aggressive. But Jake Thompson, 88-92, throws a 4-seamer and a 2-seamer with some sink, slider, curve, change, the curveball. A very good put-away pitch, and he's the 2,000th player. 2,000th player.
2,000 Philly player in the history of the franchise.
Amazing.
It is funny when we reach those kind of milestones. Here's Wil Myers. Myers was 3 for 4 last night with a home run and a double. First pitch to him is low. 1 ball and no strikes. You mentioned that curveball for Thompson. So he came into the big leagues. With a slider as his out pitch. And it was the curveball that he developed when he was first selected by the Detroit Tigers. And that ball's off the glove of Cameron Rupp, and it's 2-0. Did that ball bounce, or did it just go off his glove?
I believe it bounced.
Cam probably could have gotten in front of that a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely bounces, but I think one that Cam could have handled.
Well, they have scored at a wild pitch. So runner at second base, nobody out. Wil Myers ahead in the count, 2 balls and no strikes. This is the 83rd game where Myers has batted second for the Padres, and he fouls it off to the right.
See, that was a clear attempt, and I mean a clear, blatant attempt to hit a ball to right field. It's the first inning, and you have a guy that has 21 home runs at the plate right now. I'd take a shot at maybe doing a little bit more damage, just hitting the ball to the right side.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
If it's the 7th or 8th inning, yeah, it's a different story. But in the first inning,
inside, and it's 3-1. I'll be honest with you, not to break down Andy Green's lineup and say he should do this, that, or the other thing, but I don't know if I would bat him second. I think I would just keep him in the 3-hole.
I would too.
Bob McClure seeing Jake Thompson for the first time. He has seen him in spring training down in the backfields. And ball 4, so that puts runners on first and second. You have to expect, even though Thompson seems so composed, you have to expect some butterflies with his major league debut. He is the 6th player to make his major league debut this year, and 16th, as we mentioned, since the start of last year. And now Yangervis Solarte, who was 0 for 3 in yesterday's ball game.
Not the ideal start for Jake Thompson, but double play would help greatly.
Swing and a miss. There's a good breaking ball there. 83 miles an hour, so that must be the slider, since the curveball is listed in the high 70s. Listed in the midseason prospect list for Baseball America as the Phillies' number 3 prospects. Another slider, and it's 0-2. Kind of an interesting story about Jake Thompson. When he was 12 years old, he played on a travel team or little league team that was coached by Mike Henneman, former major leaguer. And Mike, ironically enough, was his first pitching coach in the Detroit Tigers organization.
This is just hard to believe. He told me that earlier, and I was, wow.
Back toward the middle, and base hit into center field. A run will score. Myers is caught off second, but he'll get back. So the Padres take a 1-0 lead. It's an RBI single for Solarte.
I believe this is a curveball. I think he tries to go back to the same spot. Down and in to Solarte. Got him on the first 2. Right off the heel of his left foot. He tries to get it down and in. He just leaves it out over the plate. Solarte bangs it back up the box.
All right, well, now you kind of manage your way through this inning here. The Phillies have given up a run. 9 pitches for Jake Thompson. And he'll face Alex Dickerson. Dickerson chops it foul, and it's 0-1. It's amazing how fast they're going after him.
I can't believe it.
Because you would think that if you see a guy for the first time, you're going to take a few pitches.
You have to pick out the arm slot.
Yeah.
I mean, every pitcher's different.
Obviously, the Padres must have watched some film from his Lehigh Valley days and saw something that they figured they could pick out early. There's lead off first and second. And a liner to right field. Aaron Altair is there. He'll make the catch. So 1 away.
I think it's more so the fact that they know it's his first big league start. They know he wants to get ahead, and the best pitch to get ahead with is a fastball.
That's a good point.
So I think they're saying, you know what, I'll take my chances. If it, like Solarte, he was sitting dead red fastball, gets 2 sliders, swings over top both of them.
So if you're a catcher, you see that, do you pitch backwards at this point, or you just let him try to get settled in?
No, I think you start to make the adjustments. You say, all right, these guys are locked and loaded. They're ready to go.
Jabari Blash, who's hitting 200. He was 1 for 3 last night with a walk. Phillies will not hold on Solarte over at first base with runners on first and second. Thompson peeks back at Will Myers. That's exactly it. They're going right after that first pitch fastball. Padres are wearing the uniforms that they wore when Ben Davis was a San Diego Padre.
Very true.
Curveball waved at 0-2. That was a high. Actually, that was a slider. throws a high slider.
I was very glad when we abandoned those uniforms.
Oh, really?
I was.
That pitch is high, 1-2. Blash is a tough guy to double up. Thinking about a ground ball double play here. Breaking ball and a call. Strike 3. He'll keep that baseball. The first career strikeout for Jake Thompson. And he froze the big right-hander. So 2 away.
An awkward swing at a curveball earlier. That is a curveball. He throws it hard. Backed up on him earlier, and Blash swung through it awkwardly and threw another one. And I think he's seeing the spin on that right now.
Well, that'll bring Ryan Schimpf to the plate with runners on first and second. So Thompson trying to get himself through this inning with 1 run across the plate. Fastball outside, 1-0. Outside, 3 balls and no strikes. Thompson, we mentioned, is out of Heath, Texas. When he was in high school, he originally committed to go to the University of Nebraska to play baseball. Well, their head coach, who was Cody Ashley's former coach, Mike Anderson, was let go. So he decommitted and then signed with TCU. But then was eventually drafted by the Tigers, so never went to college. Drafted in the 2nd round by the Tigers. A 3-0 green light for Schimpf, and he hits it foul. He hits it a mile and foul. And it's 3-1. Confidence Andy Green has in his young second baseman. Although he's not young, he is inexperienced in the big leagues. He is 28 years old.
Pretty good 3-0 swing, though.
Outside, so that's the 2nd walk issued by Thompson. So the bases are loaded. That'll bring Christian Bethancourt to the plate. Jake Thompson provided us with a Geico quote of the day on his call up. It was pretty awesome. I had a different route than most guys my age to be called up after having been traded a couple of times. I made a few different stops, but yeah, it was really satisfying moment for me. Well,
he had to expect it at some point.
At some point, but I think what he's saying too, the route being traded twice, that's an oddity for a guy that's 22 years old.
Very much so.
Bases are loaded. Bethancourt hitting .250 with 5 home runs. Takes a breaking ball and it's 0-1.
That is a rarity, but it also shows that his ability is highly coveted.
Center field. That's going to split the gap and go to the wall. 1 run is in. 2 runs will score. Schimpf's around 3rd. He's going to score. It's a 3-run double for Bethancourt, and the Padres are up 4-0 here in the 1st inning. Bethancourt just tucked his hands in and was able to pop that ball into the gap in left center field.
A lot of these breaking balls are backing up on him. You see that ball just there in the middle of the plate. Bob McClure is going to have a visit.
Well, it's not exactly the same debut as Zach Eflin right now, but the first inning is very similar. So Bob McClure is giving Jake Thompson a chance to catch his breath. Give me a thought, Ben, on adrenaline in your first start, how much that may play into, particularly for a pitcher. I don't know if it's as much for a hitter, but for a pitcher when he's trying to find the strike zone.
Yeah, I think right now the adrenaline is getting the best of him, and the fact that he's trying to overpower everything. You saw the fastball he spiked in the dirt earlier in the count to Will Myers, or earlier in the inning to Will Myers, and a lot of these breaking balls, I think he's throwing them, overthrowing them, and that's why they're backing up. He's not giving his arm a chance to get out in front.
Alexi Ramirez takes a strike, and it's 0-1. Down the right field line, so no balls and 2 strikes. So this is the first time he's ahead 0-2 to a batter. Let's see if he can finish off Alexi Ramirez. Toward third base, that'll drag foul, and it remains 0-2. Bethancourt goes back to second base.
That's exactly what I'm talking about right there. He's just flying open way out in front, and his arm is just not catching up to his body, to his stride. There's no way he can get on top of that breaking ball.
One ball and 2 strikes to Ramirez, who did not start yesterday but hit a home run as a pinch hitter. He was the opening day shortstop for the Padres. Bethancourt with a big lead off second. Inside 2-2. I guess that's what you're talking about. Zach Eflin's first major league start, he allowed 1 in the first, 2 in the second to the Blue Jays, and then 6 in the third inning. Overall allowed 9 earned runs in 2 2/3. So Thompson's not there yet, but he's going through the same feeling out process. Foul off the third base bag.
And I will, not to make excuses for Jake right now, but the Major League Baseball and the minor league baseball are different, completely different.
I remember Jared Eichhoff said that last year when he made his major league debut.
I remember, all we heard about was Jared Eichhoff's great curveball.
Yeah, he couldn't get command of it.
And yet the first 3 games, like, what curveball? He didn't even throw it.
Took a little bit of time for him to figure it out.
Time.
shortstop. Freddie Galvis comes up to gobble it up, throws to first in time, and the inning is over. But the Padres do score 4. A 3-run double by Christian Bethancourt. So we'll go to the second inning. It's 4-0 in favor of the Padres. Inducted. You can get your tickets now by going to Phillies.com. All fans coming to the ballpark will receive the commemorative print you see right there. It's going to be a great weekend. Toyota Alumni Weekend at Citizens Bank Park. 4-0 Padres on a beautiful night here in San Diego. And as we go to the top of the second, Maikel Franco will lead things off. Franco was 1 for 4 last night. He scored a couple runs, had a double. Hitting .253 with 20 home runs and 66 runs batted in.
That's where you're caught in a tough position if you're leading off this inning. Because Maikel, you know that Clemens wants to get ahead right here. But the guy just gave up 4 runs.
Yeah, so you might get something like that and you crush it down the left field line. Foul. I don't know where that went.
It went right in that stairwell, right underneath.
There's Thompson talking to Bob McClure. Everything we've heard about Jake Thompson is that he is unflappable. So we'll see how he responds going out there in the second inning. Lots of friends and family who are here to watch him play. No balls and 1 strike to Franco.
You know what I'm saying? You don't want to go up there and just make a first pitch out.
I know.
But
you might get a cookie.
You might get a cookie.
See, his breaking pitch, at least the first inning plus, they've been up in the zone.
They have. He's shaking his head.
Yeah, I don't know if the Phillies will be able to capitalize on it, but they are not biting pitches right now. Chopper over to third, a foul ball.
And that was a hanger.
Yeah. You cannot live in that area if you're a pitcher.
Even I could have hit that one. Well, maybe not.
You're jumping the gun a little bit there, big boy.
Well, that was a good one to hit.
It sure looked like it. No balls, 2 strikes to Franco. Chopped over to third base. Doubled up by Solarte. And 4 up, 4 down for the Padres right-hander. And Ryan Howard will be the hitter. Howard hitting a .178 with 15 home runs and 31 runs batted in. 12 career home runs against the Padres. Tommy Joseph started last night's ball game. Ryan getting a chance to start today against the right-hander. Tomorrow, I guess it'll depend on Pete Buchanan's field, but Jared Cozart will start for the Padres, another right-hander. First pitch is inside, 1 ball and no strikes. Out to center field. That ball is crushed. Jankowski going back. It is gone. A home run for Ryan Howard, his 16th of the year. Clemens looks like he's in dismay, but that ball was up and he just annihilated it.
Peace. He just got away with, what, 6 hangers in a row.
He really did.
Love to see Ryan walk it off coming out of the box. Another pitch just up, out, over the middle of the plate. It's hammered to center.
Yeah, those ladies up on the stairwell, they better be careful. That ball was coming in hot. Home run for Ryan Howard, his 16th of the year, number 373 for his career. So the Phillies are on the board. It's a 4-1 ball game. Here's Cameron Rupp. Cameron had 4 RBIs last night. Takes upstairs, 1 ball and no strikes. Just under 430 feet for that home run for Ryan Howard. See what Cameron's done the last 4 games. Opposite way, caught by Will Myers. Well, it's a good sign though. The Phillies are hitting some balls hard here. 2 outs.
Even to get 1 back. This inning's not over yet, but even to get that 1 back means a lot. Chip away. Pete yell at Cam, way to swing it.
Now Cody Ashley hitting just .215. He has 4 homers and 17 runs batted in. Since the 1st of July, we've been talking about these numbers. This is where he's been struggling. And he swings at the first pitch into shallow left center field. And Jankowski, the center fielder, makes the call and wraps up the second for the Phils. But Ryan Howard puts the Phillies on the board. A center field home run. It's his 16th of the year, his 32nd RBI. So the Phils are down by 3 as we go to the bottom of the second. It's 4-1. Just finished up his warm-up tosses. Jake talked to Murph before about his friendship with some of the Phillies players, including Jared Eickhoff, who he spent time with in Texas. But these young guys, particularly the guys that have been traded to the Phillies, Murph, they've gotten to kind of know each other a little faster than most teammates would.
Yeah, you know, it's a perfect fit. You talk about this young rotation of the Phillies, and each one of them knows exactly what the other one is going through. And you heard in our interview before the game with Jake Thompson that he's very close with Zach Eflin, who also made his Major League debut this year for the Phillies. And they first met back when they both played in the Pan Am games together and represented Team USA. That's the first time they met. They kept in touch after that, and then they both ended up in Philadelphia, wound up being traded to the Phillies organization. They lived together for a time, and so I went to Zach and I said, well, tell me a little bit about Jake. What is he like? And the word he used time and time again while he was talking to me was that he's a bulldog. He's the kind of guy that's going to go right after you. He's not afraid of anything. He said, you know, he's a Texas guy. He's going to come right after you and not have any fear. And that's the way he pitches, and that's kind of the way he lives his life. So it was interesting to listen to Zach talk about his buddy and the excitement in his voice as his friend got ready to have his Major League debut, a feeling that Zach felt only a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that they recognize, these young pitchers, that they are part of the Phillies' future. That
yes.
they're the foundation piece for this young staff moving forward. And I think they like that. They've gotten to, you know, they watch each other's bullpens. They've gotten to hang out with each other. You know, so I think that's a good thing.
They should like it. It's a bright future, and I mean, really, it's in their hands. How they choose to go about it, it's up to them. Do they jump at the opportunity? Do they cower from it?
Jankowski takes a strike. It's 0-1.
And you know what, guys, just think about it. It doesn't have to be baseball, but any walk of life, when you're put into a new situation and you're surrounded by people that you feel comfortable with and that you know you can talk to and understand what you're going through, well, it just makes it that much easier. Nice play by Thompson right there. It just makes it easier to get settled in and feel more confident quicker. And I think you're going to see that with this staff because they're going to play off one another.
Absolutely. And that is something that's very welcoming from a Phillies standpoint. Here's Thompson taking this throw from Ryan Howard.
Just gets there in time. Nice play by Ryan and Jake.
So Will Myers, the batter, with 2 men down. Fastball, and it's 1-1.
Is it near? Does he have a little Brett Myers in him?
Yeah, he does have a little in his wind.
Doesn't he?
Yeah. Ball and 2 strikes. Well, what Eflin told Murph, it's evident in this inning. You know, the fact that he goes right after it, because he's not backing down right now.
And that you'd love to see.
Absolutely. You're not going to race the 4-run first inning, but what he does from there is going to be of big importance. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Giants and the Nationals are at the top of the 7th inning. San Francisco leads at 4-0. Strasburg, 4 earned runs, 8 hits, and 4 2/3. Giants said after last night's ballgame they needed Matt Cain to at least match Steven Strasburg today and maybe get into the Nationals bullpen. Well, it looks like he's doing a little bit more than that. Giants lead is still 2 in the West. That's because each time they've lost this week, the Dodgers have lost. 3-2. Still trying to get a feel for that breaking pitch. Foul tip. They're going to say that the ball hit the ground, though, and it's a foul ball. Mike Everett signaled almost immediately, did not ask for any help. There's no argument from the Phillies dugout. Take a look.
No argument from Cameron.
Ooh.
I think it hit it.
You think it hit it?
I do.
You don't think that was the glove that kicked it there?
No.
Okay. Is that wishful thinking on my part?
Not wishful thinking, but see no argument from Cam. He's smiling back there.
Try to sell it.
Tried to sell it.
Out to second base. Cesar Hernandez is up with it. So 1-2-3 second inning for Jake Thompson. Well, that was a much needed quick inning. His family is excited by it. Let's see if the Phillies offense can continue to battle back when we return in the top of the third. Question. Log on to Phillies.com. Go to the fan section for all the information, and please submit your answer on the subject line. Then the question is, who were the 3 Padre managers from '93 to 2014? The answer will be revealed a little later on. '93 to 2014.
Wow.
You should know one.
I know 2.
Okay.
Huh.
Freddie Galvis will lead it off. Galvis takes on the outside corner. Galvis hitting .226 with 9 home runs and 40 runs batted in, but he's 0 for his last 12. Ground ball foul. Usually sure-handed Mickey Morandini had a little trouble with that foul ball. Still have time to recover.
Good swing there. Good balance by Freddie.
Can he get away with this breaking pitch the way it's coming in here like this?
He shouldn't be able to. Watch Freddie finish his swing. Right there. Balance at the end. Not falling over. Not falling backwards.
Just flicked his wrist on that. It's a soft fly ball to shallow center field. Going away. The Reading Phillies put on some great promotions, and one of their most popular is the aptly named Gluttony Night. CSN's Marshall Harris brings a fork in his appetite for this all-you-can-eat extravaganza. Watch an all-new Phillies clubhouse Monday night at 6:30 right here on CSN.
What night is that?
Monday night extravaganza.
No, when are they having tonight?
Oh, I don't know. I think they already had it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Jake Thompson making his first major league at bat. He is 1 for 20 in the minor leagues with a couple sacrifice bunts. Like a lot of pitchers who are in the big leagues, he was an excellent hitter when he was in high school. But like a lot of pitchers who were drafted, he didn't get many opportunities in the minor leagues to hit, so that skill has somewhat fizzled.
But these are the guys you have to be a little skeptical of if you're the opposing pitcher, because they're not that far removed from.
That's true.
4 years ago, he's in high school, right?
Yes.
So they're not that far removed from swinging it on a consistent basis. I know this is big league pitching, but
miss. 2-2.
Good hack.
Well, he's up there with, with a stance that's not typical for a pitcher because his back foot is close to the plate.
Yeah.
Bethancourt sets up outside, and it runs outside. I mean, usually a pitcher is maybe a foot back where his back foot is. Toward third, Solarte has it. All right, it's not a bad swing at all.
No.
5-3 on the put out.
Hit it hard.
2 outs. If your employees are on the road as much as the Phillies are, protect them with Independence Blue Cross. They're part of a national system of Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans that cover more than 100 million members across the country. Live fearless. Learn more at ibx.com/biz. Cesar Hernandez struck out his first time up. 0-1. Ground ball right side. Will Myers knocks it down. There is no chance for them to get Cesar Hernandez. Could it be his first error of the season? He kind of made it a tough play because he fielded it, or tried to field it. Because Cesar runs like the wind. Even if he had fielded it cleanly, I don't know if he would have been able to get it over there because Paul Clemens is not going to be able to outrun Cesar.
I don't know why he just doesn't let Schimpf get this. It's a better angle. First error of the year.
It has been scored in E3.
Schimpf was right behind him and with a way better angle.
Myers is peeking up at the scoreboard just to see it. He just saw the E pop up. So Odubel Herrera, who struck out his first time up, will be up for the second time tonight. Goes, pitches way inside, and I think it may have gotten Odubel Herrera.
I think he may have. Oh no, they're saying he did not.
Yeah, they
swing.
did appeal the swing, and the third base umpire said he did not. So Herrera will head over to first base. The Phillies have runners on first and second. And he is just a cartoon with a lot of things he does.
I just don't think he's seeing the ball at all.
I don't think he is either.
I mean,
well, and you know better than I do, but just by watching it.
That, I mean, that is. It's like he just was going to swing and then just had no idea what type of pitch it was.
That must be a lost feeling when you have that sort of presence as a hitter. First and second, Aaron Altair, who grounded out his first time up. He will be the batter. And Altair pops it up. Ramirez, the shortstop, backpedaling. He's under it. And the Phils leave a couple here in the third. No runs, no hits, one error for the Padres. Middle of the third, 4-1 San Diego. to you by Nissan. ShopChooseNissan.com. By McDonald's. Mix and match any two for just $2.50 on McDonald's McPick 2 menu. And by your local Ford stores. Bottom of the third inning here in San Diego. Phillies fans are all over the city. The park in the park, I almost said the bark in the park, but the park in the park, which has a little different landscape to it this year because the beach is no longer there in right center field.
No.
Those big bleachers. They got a patio deck out there now. I thought that was one of the coolest things this ballpark had was the grandstand that was out in right center field.
It was a beach.
They got surfboards though, Ben.
Yes, they do.
On the inside corner, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. So Marte singled home run his first time up. He also scored on the Bethancourt double. Two and two. Line drop caught by Freddie Galvis out at shortstop.
I'll break your glove in.
One away here in the third. It certainly will. On the road traveling and want to watch your Phillies? Subscribe to MLB.tv Premium for live or on-demand baseball on over 400 devices. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking, and more. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details. Alex Dickerson is the hitter, and he takes upstairs 1-0. Dickerson flied out or lined out to right field his first time up.
See his BP today?
I did not see his BP. No. Well, he was hitting .382 when he was brought up from AAA, which is leading the Pacific Coast League.
I saw him hit a ball above the right field scoreboard, above the San Francisco Washington, up into that deck. I mean, that is far.
Well, it's hit sharply back through the middle, a base hit, a 1-out single. Jake Thompson, who was selected in the second round of the 2012 draft. The Phillies now have 3 players who were selected in the second round of 2012. Cousins was their pick. Thompson was the Tigers pick, and Williams, who was eventually a teammate of Thompson in Texas and this year Lehigh Valley, was the Rangers' second round pick. Jabari Blash 0 for 1. And he grounded foul 0-1. Thompson was really on a run down in AAA. 5th in the International League in ERA. Last 11 starts, a 1.21 ERA. With an 8-0 record, he had only allowed 2 home runs during that time. Blash was late on a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
He missed his spot there. I expected him to really see a lot of fastballs inside today, just for the simple fact that Ellickson did it so well last night, blew up his bat a couple times. He's a big guy, but he does have a bit of a longer swing.
Just a bit low with a changeup, and it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. Last year, when Thompson was acquired from the Rangers, he won 5 games in the regular season for the Reading Titans, and then pitched in the postseason for them. Overall, he's won 16 games since the Phillies picked him up. He was in AA with Texas as well. Breaking ball inside 2-2. he struggled in his first few starts in AAA. And, folks wondered, well, is it because of the jump from one level to the other? He said no, it was about his command more than anything else.
What it really always comes down to: command, command, command. You have the best stuff in the world.
Fly ball, shallow left field. Cody Asche comes running in. And he puts it away for the second out.
You have the best stuff in the world. If you cannot command it, what good is it? That's why the really, really good ones, Jose Fernandez is the first one to come to mind. They have the stuff, yes, but they can command it both sides of the plate with whatever pitch they have and can throw it at any time. That's command.
Schiff walked and scored his first time up. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, Atlanta leads St. Louis 7-3. Freddie Freeman has hit a 3-run home run, his 19th of the year. St. Louis is 9.5 games back. Cubs are hot again. They've won 5 straight. 9.5 games back in the Central. Bethancourt, who has the 3-run double in the on-deck circle. Thompson wearing number 44. That is his preferred number. He's wearing 33 down in Lehigh Valley. Frank Kopenbarger, who is the Phillies director of team travel, director of clubhouse services, talked to a lot of the prospects before the season and was talking about their numbers, what their favorite numbers are. And he said, well, if they're available when you do eventually make your debut at some point in your career, we'll try to get you that number. And this is the number Thompson wanted, number 44. Sometimes guys arrive in the big leagues and whatever number's waiting for them in the locker, that's their number.
And I really like that, because once you get you're part of a big league club. A lot of teams you get called up is the number you had in spring training. So it's you're wearing 79.
Right.
It's like, no, I don't want 79.
There it goes. And pitches popped up. Rupp off with the mask under it. Maikel Franco comes down as well, but Rupp makes the catch. The inning is over. No runs, no hits, 1 man left. Maikel Franco will lead it off when we come back for the top of the 4th. documents, hand the game ball over to Fellows, the most trusted name in the game, to get the job done. Delivered for free by who? But W.B. Mason. Maikel Franco will start things off. Phillies have one hit so far through the first 3 innings. That was a monster home run by Ryan Howard. And Franco, who had a monster foul ball at his first at bat, will get a second shot against Paul Clemens. And a line drive, base hit it to left center field for Franco. Now Dickerson kicked it, and Franco is still going to put the brakes on because it didn't kick it far enough. And that's a leadoff single. You got the sense in his first at bat that he was going to be able to square one up against Clemens, didn't you?
He had some they were aggressive swings, to put it mildly, but they were good swings. They were quick swings.
Here's Ryan Howard. He certainly squared one up his first time up.
We'll see a pitch up out over the plate. That's exactly what you need to do with it. Pretty swing there by Ryan Howard. You're right, that lady was getting smoked on that stairwell.
She's walking down to the San Diego beach. Howard lines one to right field. That's going to be in for a base hit. A one hop off the wall. Franco's on his way to third. Howard is on his way to second with a head-first slide. That's his 7th double of the year. He's got a home run and a double so far in the first 4 innings.
Do it, Peace. Pick him up and put him down. I was holding my hands up saying, no, stay at first base, but he obviously reads it better than I do. Now Blash comes up and hits the cutoff man. I think they had the play set up to come home. So the cutoff men were there as opposed to being more for the cutoff to second base.
They were too close to each other.
They were.
There's Cameron Rupp. Rupp lined out his first time up. He's lined out to Will Myers. Checks the swing on the first pitch, a breaking ball. No strikes to Rupp. So what's up with Paul Clemens' jersey in this inning?
Well, he had pine tar all down the left side.
So you think that's why they made him take it off?
I would have to say I don't know how he would get that much pine tar, and I did notice it last inning. It was underneath. It's like on his left rib cage. There was a ton of pine tar, and that would be obviously a violation.
Ball outside corner.
I just don't know why he doesn't have another jersey.
Yeah, or at least a jersey that has a blank name, not just player. It's almost as if it's a sample.
You think his teammates say, "Go on, player"? It's so odd.
2 balls and 1 strike to Rupp. Outside 3-1. Chopper over to shortstop, backhanded by Ramirez. Franco will score. Throw is high, and Cameron Rupp is safe. And the Phillies have cut the lead to 2, and everybody is safe all the way around.
A good base running all the way around. Ramirez had a terrible throw in the very first inning off the bat of Maikel Franco. Or I'm sorry, off the bat of Aaron Altherr in the first inning. He spiked one. This one just another awkward throw. He just gets underneath it and airmails it. Will Myers obviously not able to hold the bag at first base.
It is an RBI for Rupp, but it is an E6. And that puts runners on first and second with still nobody out here in the 4th inning. It's a 4-2 game. And Cody Asche flat out to center field his first time up. And he swings and foul tips the first pitch. It's 0-1. Ball. And 1 ball and 1 strike. Pulled toward first, smothered by Myers, goes to second for 1. They will not turn the double play. And runners on first and third with 1 man down.
Heck of a play. Play obviously more difficult for a right-handed first baseman. Myers ranging to his left. Does the spinorama. Fires it to second base. Right on the money.
The Phillies are looking to make sure that Ramirez was on the second base bag when the throw went to second from Will Myers. It was quick, but it did look like his foot was still on the bag. Larry Bowa's on the horn. So Pete's going to have to decide whether he wants to challenge this or not. And they've decided not to. Mark McGwire was on the phone to see if the slide rule was in effect. Like that was okay. Breaking ball, and it's 1-1. Miss, 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Going back to that play, I don't think Ramirez had any intention of making that relay throw to first base. The ball was hit sharply. It was a very good throw by Myers to Ramirez. And Cody Asche isn't a burner. He wasn't halfway up the line.
Do you think that's why Clemens reacted the way he did?
Yes, I do.
Runner goes from first, and the pitch is grounded to second base. Here comes Howard. He's coming home. They're not going to throw to the plate. They get the out at first, and it's a 4-3 ball game. I'm a little surprised that Schimpf didn't come to the plate.
I am too, but I'm glad he didn't.
So an RBI for Freddie Galvis. The Phillies have gotten 3 runs back after falling behind 4-0.
Nice to see Cody Asche in motion there. Probably would have had him at home plate. Probably thinking, I just want to make sure of an out here. All right, Freddie will take the RBI.
And now Asche's at second base. And Thompson will bat for the second time. He's 0 for 1. Ball and 1 strike.
See, the ball goes right in your screen there. He's got it.
And Myers is back at the bag.
He's back at the bag, and I agree. That's the reason Clemens reacted the way he did.
What he just reacted to with Schimpf not throwing to the plate with his hands over his head.
Player's not happy. Player 91 is not happy.
Here, you have to wear this one. What? Now don't forget, these are not normal uniforms for the Padres. It's a special night to honor Ken Caminiti.
But why would they even have that one printed up?
I'm telling you, it's a prototype. This is this is an example of what we're wearing. Chopper back toward the middle. Schimpf backhands, looks to third, and it's the first major league hit for Jake Thompson. Keep that baseball. He put it in play, and the Phils have runners on first and third with 2 men down.
Why would they throw it to that side?
Well, Eddie Rodriguez just knocked it back in front of the dugout. So,
congratulations, Jake.
Darren Balsley's out to talk to his pitcher.
Chopper up the middle. Schimpf realizing he's not going to have a play on Thompson.
Well, a base hit here would be obviously huge, but it would pull the Phils even and give Jake Thompson new life in this major league debut. He already has it now that the Phils have pulled it within 1. There's the exchange. They didn't hold it for ransom or anything like that.
Another one out there, Cesar.
Cesar takes inside. 1 ball and no strikes. Cesar reached on an error his last time up. He struck out his first time. Phillies with 3 runs on 4 hits. Pulled toward first, backhanded by Will Myers, and the side is retired. But the Phillies do get 2 more runs back. They leave a couple. Jake Thompson got his first major league hit, and it's a 4-3 ball game as we go to the bottom of the 4th here in San Diego. Toyota. Visit buyatoyota.com to find your RAV4 today. Toyota, let's go places. Let's go Phils. Well, Jake Thompson and the Phillies are back within 1 as we move to the bottom of the 4th inning. So Let's see if he can pitch a quiet fourth against Bethancourt, Alexi Ramirez, and Paul Clemens, player 91. Got to figure that his butterflies are all settled down now, Ben?
I would think so. I think running the bases probably helped him out as well.
First inning, 3 hits, 4 runs, 30 pitches. Since 1 hit in 34 pitches. There's player 2. See, they're just trying to make sure he feels like he belongs. That is great.
Why do I think that's so funny?
I'm telling you, that's what it has to be. They probably don't have any extra uniforms because it's only for tonight that they're wearing them. It's for Ken Caminidi's night. Ball hit well out to right center field by Ramirez, or by Bethancourt, excuse me. It's a ground rule double. It's his second double of the game. So much for this guy struggling offensively. He's had himself a very productive night. So he's in scoring position, and Alexi Ramirez is now the hitter.
First pitch, fastball hunting. Bethancourt, and first time out double to left center. This time ground rule double to right center.
Fastball, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike to Ramirez. 89 on that fastball. Swing and a miss. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Interesting. Thompson was talking earlier this year about his 4-seamer. When he was with the Detroit Tigers, he basically relied on the 2-seamer. You know, it was a sinker. When he went to the Rangers, they wanted him to incorporate the 4-seamer, so he threw that more often. He got more strikeouts. When he came back to the Phillies, they wanted him to go back to that 2-seamer a little bit more. Bethancourt on his way to third. The throw to third, and he is out at third base. Bethancourt saying his foot got in there ahead of the tag. It was a close play. Freddie Galvis definitely took a chance to try to get him at third base.
Very close play, and Big Mac says he is out.
So they will not review it.
But that is the only throw, and I mean the only
It's
throw.
a great throw.
That could have gotten Bethancourt. He actually tagged his right foot.
6-5 on the putout, so they're not reviewing it. I guess they felt like he did get his foot before his other foot got to the bag. Everybody knows this, but if you're a base runner, you have to make that. You cannot get thrown out, particularly on the first out,
Right.
over at third base.
Player 1 is no more.
Clemens now has 47 back on his back. You think they washed it and dried it real fast?
No, I just sent one of the clubhouse attendants a text, and he said, "We're on it." Mike Everett made him take it off due to the pine tar, as we expected.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Interesting.
And it was confirmed what you said.
Ooh, he bunts it back to the mound. He is ticked off, and he's going to get doubled off. 1-6-4 on the double play. He is not happy that that pitch came in at his belt buckle. Hey, it's all part of the game. Thompson looks back at him and says, "You're out." Thompson fielded that and realized he had a play at second, and it turned out to be an easy double play. And now the Padres are saying they want to look at it. Look at that. It wasn't really as close as you think. He still has to run. I guess he just assumed that Thompson was going to throw it to first. Padres say that it was not a violation, so that ends the inning. Pulled within 4-3. This guy shows way too much emotion.
Wearing your heart on your sleeve.
Seriously. This is why he was upset. He did a good job even butting that ball.
Give him credit, but you still have to run.
Look at
And he's taking his batting gloves off as he's running to
I
first.
think he just thought they were going to get him at first, and that was it. Here's Odubel Herrera to lead it off for the Phillies. Odubel takes inside, 1 ball and no strikes. Odubel is 0 for 1. He was hit by a pitch his last time up. One ball and no strikes to Herrera. That one's in there, 1-1. Talked about the numbers against Clemens. Fastball numbers, batting average high. Changeup numbers, batting average high. But Murph, the curveball numbers, the batting average is not that high. But we've seen his curveball in this ball game being way up in the zone an awful lot. And the Phillies have capitalized sometimes, but they haven't capitalized every single time.
Yeah, it's obvious that when Paul Clemens is at his best, his curveball is at his best, and I wouldn't think that people would say that he has his best curveball here tonight. You mentioned the numbers, and they're very lopsided when using his other pitches. You know, he's hit around a little bit, but if you take a look at the numbers against his curveball in the last 3 years, now these numbers are since 2013. You take a look at against his curveball, batter's just hitting 102 against his curveball. You look at where that puts him. How about 5th best in baseball with one particular pitch? Some pretty good names on that list as well. Paul Clemens' curveball, 102, comes in 5th toughest pitch to get a base hit off of in all of baseball. But like we said, doesn't have that crisp curveball tonight, and that's why they're able to hit him around. And now the guy I like to call the player formerly known as Player is being removed from the game.
He is exiting this ball game. I'm a little surprised by this at this point in the game. 71 pitches for Clemens. His night is done.
That was straight. You can't do that on my baseball field. I'm going to give a reliever enough time to warm up, and you're out of this
You think
ball
that's
game.
what it was?
I think so.
Yeah, you might be right about that, and that's basically what they've done. They've gone to the bullpen. A new pitcher for the Padres. We'll be back right after this to San Diego. Aaron Altair will be the batter with one man down. Buddy Baumann is the new pitcher for the Padres, and he delivers a strike. It's 0-1. Baumann, originally from the Kansas City Royals organization, pitching in his 6th game with San Diego. 0-2. Very interesting, you know, as you look at his numbers. I think you're right about that, Ben. I think Clemens has been so animated and showing so much poor body language in the first few innings, including in his last at bat. And you don't often see a manager go out and get a pitcher. Position player, yes, not a pitcher.
Because you don't want to burn your bullpen.
Yeah. So Andy Green's feeling, at least we think, is that it's worth burning the bullpen to prove a point to a guy that's fortunate that he's here in the big leagues.
And it's the 5th inning, so he's looking at a possible win here.
So we get a miss, and Altair strikes out. So Baumann gets a strikeout, 2 outs here in the 5th inning. Nobody's gone over to talk to Clemens yet since he went into the dugout. Darren Balsley has not gone over. Andy Green has not gone over. He did speak with him before he left the mound.
But he did show up his players, his own teammates, a couple times. I think that, and then what his last antics with the bunt, I think put him over the top.
Miguel Franco is the hitter. Franco is 1 for 2. Balls in 1 strike. Franco pops it up. Bethencourt gives it a look. It's going to be back into the seats. And it's no balls and 2 strikes. And Baumann strikes out both batters that he faces here in the 5th inning. Phillies go down in order. Clemens' night is done. He'll leave without a chance to win or lose this ball game. About money, don't keep it to yourself. Ask a citizen. Peter Borges, a home run today in his rehab game with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. They defeated Rochester 7-2. Reading lost to Altoona in 10. Reese Hoskins hit another home run, his 34th of the year. Drew Anderson, 6 innings for Clearwater, a 2-1 victory over Lakeland. And the Gulf Coast League defeated the Pirates. Mickey Moniak 2 for 5 with a double and an RBI. Pete was talking about Peter Borges today. He said they'll probably see him when they go back home off this road trip. As we begin the bottom of the 5th inning, Travis Jankowski will lead things off. Jankowski takes a fastball. It's 0-1. He's 1 for 2, already up for his 3rd time. Singled in the 1st inning and scored. Still trying to get a feel for that breaking pitch. Opposite way down the left field line. That's a fair ball. Esche's getting to it quickly, but Jankowski runs well. And he'll get to second base easily with a stand-up double. That's his 7th double of the year.
He can run. Man alive, but that is an excellent piece of hitting there by Jankowski. Takes what Jake Thompson's going to give him. It's a fastball away, out over the plate. Does not try and pull it.
So runner at second base, and Will Myers, who is 0 for 1 with a walk and a run scored, will be the batter. It's at the opposite way, foul over the first base dugout. Oh, and 2. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run over 500 feet today for the Marlins.
504.
504 was what it was projected. Colorado, though, leads Miami 9-3. That game's in the top of the 7th inning. 2 pitch coming to Myers. Line drive foul down the right field line. Count remains no balls and 2 strikes. Ken Caminiti t-shirts or jerseys that were given out tonight for the ball game. Stays alive with a foul ball. If that was a changeup that went awry, it was only 77, or if it was a curveball that he didn't snap off.
I'm trying to figure it out myself.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Myers. And a liner to the gap in right center field. That's going to score another run. Myers can run, and he's on his way to second base, thinking 3. He'll stop, though, at second. It's an RBI double. And it's now 5-3 San Diego. Back-to-back doubles for the Padres.
Not a problem getting ahead of Myers there, but just putting him away was the issue.
Bob McClure on the phone, getting somebody up to the bullpen.
And that pitch is up and in the middle of the plate.
And Mac's going to head out to talk to the right-hander. He'll give the bullpen a chance to get loosened up. Luis Garcia is starting to throw in the pen. Phillies made a move today. They designated Brett Oberholzer So Brett is not here. That was the move made to bring Jake Thompson to the big league roster. So their long man now is Severino Gonzalez. But for the moment, it's Luis Garcia who's going to be pitching or warming up here in the 5th inning. Tuesday, August 16th, the Phillies will take on the Los Angeles Dodgers in a 3-game series. It wraps up on Thursday the 18th, a post-game concert with country music star Chase Rice. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. Get a chance to see Chase Utley and Chase Rice at Citizens Bank Park. Solarte is the batter with a runner at second. 1 run is in. Trying to get Jake Thompson through this 5th inning. Got the foot of Solarte and went all the way back into the seats behind home plate. So Myers will go back to second, and it puts runners on first and second with still nobody out. Boy, it doesn't look like it hit him.
It had to have for it to jump that high. I mean,
so?
Yes, because the home plate's going to be pretty flat. There's not going to be that big a divot to home plate.
So it had to ramp some way?
Yes. It had to get some type of trajectory to get over that net.
Here's Dickerson. Dickerson singled his last time up. He's flat out to right field, 1 for 2 in the ball game. Swing and a miss. 1-1. This guy had a 382 batting average in AAA when he was promoted. 62 games. Hits that one sharply to first, backhanded by Howard, and he can't get the ball out of his glove to make the throw to second. 3 unassisted, 1 man down, runners on second and third, and Blash is the batter. And here comes Pete Mackanin, so that's going to be it for Jake Thompson. So Thompson's major league debut is in the books. You can't finish the line on him just yet. Jabari Blash is going to face Luis Garcia with 1 man down here in the 5th inning. So pitching change for the Phillies here in the bottom of the 5th. They trail it by 2. Trying to limit the damage. The Thompson family get a chance to watch him pitch. We'll be back right after this. Phillies family packs are available for select weekend games, including Alumni Weekend. 4 tickets, 4 Hatfield hot dogs, and 4 Coca-Colas for $100. For more information and to order, visit the tickets section at Phillies.com. So a pitching change for the Phillies. Luis Garcia is going to take over for Jake Thompson here in the 5th inning. Bob McClure came over and chatted with Jake for a moment. Talked about how competitive he was. Obviously, he's happy to make his major league debut, but I'm sure he's not happy with the results.
I'm sure there's a bit of frustration there.
Responsible for the runners at 2nd and 3rd. He has scattered 7 hits over 4 1/3. So here's Garcia, 5th ball game. Now the thing about Garcia, the infield is in. He does have the ability to strike a guy out.
Yes, he does.
His issue has been the free passes, though. Flash tonight is 0 for 2. He has struck out and flied out to shallow left field. There's a first pitch slider, and the count is 1 ball and no strikes. Cameron Rupp blocking that. Blash has not shown the ability to hit a plus fastball in these 2 games, but the Phillies go after him with 2 breaking pitches to start this at bat. It is an RBI situation. There's a fastball, and it's 2-1.
I just think with his bat speed,
you're giving him a chance by throwing him a slider.
Yeah, and Garcia's ability to rush it up there in the high 90s, even if he knows he's coming, it's going to be so hard for him to barrel it.
Yeah, I concur with that. That's a breaking ball. 3-1.
Nice play, Cameron. That was a short one. How far out in front of home plate that is. Nice job. Much rather take my chances with Blash than
I would agree with Shim.
Yeah, and then you have a base open.
96 on that fastball, and it's 3-2.
You know, if you choose to go that route where you'd walk Schimpf, bases loaded, chance for double play and get out of the inning.
Ball 4, and that loads the bases up. And Schimpf will be the batter. Schimpf, who had 9 home runs during the month of July, and that gave him the honors of being the Rookie of the Month in the National League. So far today, he has walked and scored. He's also popped out to Cameron Rupp. Deep to right field. That is caught by Aaron Altair. Myers will score. Awfully close to being a grand slam. It's now 6-3 San Diego. A sacrifice fly by Schimpf. Well, that's what we were talking about as far as Schimpf being able to turn on that fastball.
Exactly, and you get in that situation where you know you're going to get a fastball because Garcia's shown the inability to throw his slider for a strike. Let's have fastball down and in. Lefties love it. It was just off the end, just a hair.
Fortunately, it's a little bigger out there, too.
And they move the fences in.
Yep. So Myers scores. It's the 2nd run of the inning for the Padres, and that will bring Christian Bethancourt to the plate. Bethencourt has 2 doubles today, one to left center, one to right center field. Takes inside, 1 ball and no strikes.
That's how I would have liked to see him attack Blash. See movement on that? I mean, that's 95 with a lot of sink.
Yeah, he can throw the slider, but after he maybe gets ahead of him with the fastball. Chopper left side. Freddie Galvis comes in to take the big hop, has to hurry the throw, and it's in time to get Bethencourt. 2-run score for the Padres in the inning. They lead 2. They played 5 innings. On to the 6th. It's the Padres 6 and the Phillies 3. Productive summer. When the calendar turned from May to June, Cesar turned it up several notches at the plate and has hit with an average in the mid-300s for 2+ months. Hernandez has provided a spark at the top of the Phillies lineup and currently ranks among NL batting leaders in bunts, infield hits, triples, 4-hit games, and stolen bases. His offense has been very consistent, and it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, Cesar Hernandez certainly earns that honor, deserves that honor. Independence Blue Cross Philly of the Week. See if he can help this offense going as we move on in this ball game. First it'll be Ryan Howard, though, to lead it off. Howard is 2 for 2. Home run number 16. He's also doubled tonight. Facing Baumann, who delivers a strike, and it's 0-1.
Very fortunate to get out of that inning with just the 2 runs.
Down by 4 at one point. They made it 4-3. Now down by 3 as Howard flicks it foul into the second deck. 1-2 to Ryan.
Very productive his last 11 starts. 351 clip.
Out towards center. Jankowski is out and over, makes the catch.
Right.
1 away. 1 out. Murph, we just heard you cheer. That means you must be ready to talk about Cameron Rupp.
I am indeed ready to talk about Cameron Rupp. And, you know, guys, you talked about Ryan Howard's production over the last couple of weeks. How about Cameron Rupp's production as well since the All-Star break? And what we've seen is an increase in his power numbers. In fact, over the last 3 games that he started, he's had a home run in each one of those games. He's got 13 home runs now. That is good for 3rd in all the National League for catchers. And only Wilson Ramos has a higher OPS than Cameron Rupp in terms of catchers in the National League as well. I asked him yesterday if there's been any changes, and we were talking a little bit about what he's done mechanically, but one of the things he did do the other day back when we were back in Philadelphia is he picked up Carlos Ruiz's bat and he decided to try it out. That was the first game against the San Francisco Giants that he hit that home run. So, of course, you hit a home run, you stick with it. He's been using that Carlos Ruiz edition bat ever since then. And he said, yeah, it's very similar to the one that is, that has his name on it. But for whatever reason, it felt very comfortable in his hands. He decided to go with it, and it's been working. 3 straight games with home runs, so he's not about to change it now, guys.
You baseball players are so superstitious, Ben Davis.
Should anyone use their own bats anymore?
and he was trying to explain to me. He said it's very, very similar to the one that he normally uses, but it just doesn't have his name on it. But hey, why change it up at this point?
Absolutely. Inside, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I was walking past one of the bat bags today in the hallway in the clubhouse, and I saw an Andrew Knapp bat.
How did that wind up here?
I don't know. Maybe Tommy Joseph brought it with him.
Well, since June 1st, you see the highest slugging percentage. Ground ball toward third, so Marte gobbles it up. And there are 2 gone here in the 6th inning. Was there ever a point where you used somebody else's bat?
Yes.
And they wanted it back?
No. Can't put that on a player.
How does that work? Is it an exchange? Do you have to give them something to allow them to use your bat?
No. Just say, can I swing this tonight? Yeah, have at it.
There's an Andres Blanco model right there, and that is not Andres Blanco. That is Freddie Galvis.
Amazing.
For a while, we saw Jimmy Paredes bats all over the place. Different guys were using them. Outside corner, and it's 0-2.
Early this year, we saw Cesar Hernandez using the Jose Reyes bat after they played the Blue Jays. Or I'm sorry, after they played the Mets. Amazing. Not even on the same team.
Outside 2-2 to Cody Asher. Swing and miss as she strikes out. 1-2-3 inning. 5 up, 5 down for Baumann since he took over for Paul Clemens, player number 91. We'll head to the bottom of the 6th inning. Phillies trail the Padres 6-3. Honda dealers. Heard of your local Del Val Honda dealer. Visit DelValHondaDealers.com. Buy Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. And buy WB Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. Skyscrapers bouncing up all around here in downtown San Diego since this ballpark first opened. It's a beautiful setting. Alexi Ramirez will lead it off for the Padres against Luis Garcia here in the home sixth. And the first pitch is low, 1-0. Padres' old home, which was Ben Davis's first major league home, Qualcomm. It's about a $25 cab ride from downtown. And inside 2-0.
I drove by the old haunt yesterday, and it does not look good.
I will say I was there today.
Oof.
The playing surface is gorgeous.
That it always was.
2 balls and no strikes to Alexi Ramirez. Over the shortstop to his left and in is Galvis. Padres feel very fortunate that they were able to get the funding to build this downtown stadium. It was a tremendous idea. And it came after they went to the World Series that they were able to get the funding for this ballpark. That's when the vote took place, was the November after the World Series appearance. It was just the right place, right time. Now the Chargers are not having the same kind of success.
That place is.
No, it's old.
It's old. The playing surface did change in September when the Chargers started playing there.
Adam Rosales pinch hitting, swings through the first 97-mile-an-hour fastball. I have to admit I haven't been there since the Padres played there, and the surface itself, I was really impressed with it. You know, there was a football practice going on there. The Chargers were practicing there today, but I thought it was beautiful. It just didn't fit with the rest of the stadium.
Yeah. We would go out every year. Actually, my brother went out a couple years with me, I believe, in the wintertime to go work out, hitting the cages here, work out with strength and conditioning coach, play a little golf in the afternoons. And one time we went onto the field and they were having the Super Bowl there that year. And we went down on the field to go play catch and long toss.
And you couldn't believe
Oh,
it.
they went nuts. They
really?
get off the field. There was a guy pushing back and forth a lawnmower. It had to have maybe a 17-inch deck on it. He was going back and forth. I said, isn't there an easier way to do this? You get on a tractor or something?
Line drive to center field right at Herrera, who comes in diving. They say no, he took it on one hop. He looks in at the second base umpire. Tim Timmons was out there and he saw that it did bounce, and the Phillies are going to review it just to make sure. It did bounce.
Very fortunate that ball did not get by him because Rosales can run.
It's an even better view right there of it. So Rosales with a pinch single. Movement by the second base umpire. Phillies still have their challenge, so if they thought that it was a catch, they would have done it. Travis Jankowski's now the hitter. Jankowski is 2 for 3. Throw over to first base. Speaking of challenges, Mike Everett was saying today he was kind of clarifying some things. We had some questions about replay because there's been a lot going on recently about managers, using their challenge, losing it. As that ball's hit back toward the middle, a base hit for Jankowski, his 3rd hit of the night. And runners on first and second, so we just figured we'd chat and see what he said about replay and when you can, if you have lost your challenge, when you can request a review. Now the other day Bruce Bochy had a handful. He had lost his challenge early, and then once we reached the 7th inning, he was able to ask the crew chief Dale Scott to review other plays, and Dale obliged every single time. Yeah. What Dale told Pete Mackanin, and he confirmed it the next day when we were talking to him, is if it's the 7th inning, 8th inning, or 9th inning, he's not going to deny a manager's request because they want to make sure they're right. They don't want to be wrong.
Right.
Mike Everett said today, if you lose your challenge in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th inning, and you request a crew chief review, they are not obliged to look at it until the 7th inning. That's when they start looking at it. And it is true, the other day, it wasn't until the 7th inning when Bochy started requesting all.
And there were a lot of them.
1 ball and no strikes to Will Myers with 2 runners on and 1 man down. The other thing that Mike Everett said, and this is something that we didn't realize, because back when replay first started, they told us that once they review something, they're looking at the entire play from beginning to end. And if they see something that's wrong, they'll correct it. Well, he said today, as we wait for the 1-0 pitch to come in, they throw behind Rosales. The throw goes into center field. Rosales will not advance that. The ball at 1 strike to Myers. He said today that Major League Baseball has asked the umpires to ask the managers when they're reviewing something to be more specific about what they're going to look at. So if it's the slide rule at second base, be specific about it. If it's a play at the plate, be specific about it. Whereas before it was more freewheeling.
Yeah.
You want to look at this? Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the whole thing. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. What exactly are we looking for?
Correct.
It does. And that's only going to help speed the process up as well.
One ball and 1 strike to Myers with runners on first and second. Chopper out to shortstop. Freddie Galvis charges, bobbles, throws on the run, and everybody is safe. I don't think he had a good enough angle to go to third for the force on that.
He could have tried to shovel it, but it's getting hairy there.
So the bases are now loaded for Solarte.
Saw Freddie with a similar play back in the 4th inning where he got Betancourt at second base, but once he bobbles it, there's no chance to get Myers.
So they give Myers a base hit. He now has 3 hits in the game.
He may have been able to backhand shovel that, but you don't want to hit Rosales in the back and then have the ball carry him somewhere and he ends up scoring.
So 3 straight hits, all of a different variety. And now Solarte will be the batter. The Phillies will set up to try to turn 2. Hit sharply into right field, a base hit. 1 run is in. Jankowski can fly. He's heading home, and he'll get there sliding. The throw back to second is not in time to get Myers. It's a 2-run hit for Solarte. It's his second and third RBIs of the night. The Padres have broken this open a bit here in the 6th. It's 8-3.
Again, being very aggressive early in the count is Solarte. It's a bullet to right field.
Will Myers is fortunate that ball did not hit him as he was running at first base.
I don't know how it didn't. Another pitch down and into a lefty. Jordan Baker all over it, though. You can see him signal that the ball did not hit Will Myers. Jankowski, he can really roll, can he?
So Bob McClure out to talk to Luis Garcia. Runners on first and second. David Hernandez is starting to throw in the bullpen. And here's Alex Dickerson. The batting average that Dickerson had earlier this year when he was promoted with 382. I guess part of it shouldn't come as that much of a surprise because he was the PCL's Rookie of the Year last season. Still 382. There's an awful lot to that.
And the PCL is a great leg to hit, but those numbers, whew.
Play by Rupp. He's been busy tonight. on the inside corner. Strike 3 call. 2 outs. Time now for the Jeep Stump the Fans Trivia Quiz answer. All right, Ben, here we go. Who were the 3 Padres managers from '93 to 2014?
I'm going to say, and I don't think I'm right on this, but I'm going to say Larry Bowa, Bruce Bochy, and Buddy Black.
Bruce Bochy and Bud Black are correct. Larry Bowa is not correct, although he was a Padres manager. It was not during that time.
I think Bowa's late 80s, I believe.
Yeah, this gentleman has been a manager in a handful of places, including Washington, and that's Jim Riggleman in Seattle. Log back on to Phillies.com to find out if you're the winner of a Phillies prize pack. One ball, no strikes.
Jim Riggleman, how did I not get that?
I don't know, Ben. You weren't doing your research. Ben might be Glenn might be sleeping. Swing and a miss. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I don't know if he was ready for that 5:40 start.
Over to third and a foul ball. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Blash. Swing and a miss. And that'll wrap up the bottom of the 6th inning, but not before the Padres tack on a couple more. We've completed 6. We'll head to the 7th here in San Diego. Padres 8 and the Phillies 3. Time now for your Delaware Valley Honda dealers game summary. The Phillies fell behind 4-0 in Jake Thompson's major league debut, but they did climb back to pull within 1. Thompson lasted 4 1/3, scattered 7 hits and 6 earned runs. And he left once the Padres were rallying in the 5th. They scored 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th inning. Bethancourt and Solarte each have 3 RBIs today for San Diego. So the Padres will turn back to an old face. That's Clayton Richard, who was just signed before the ball game today. 32-year-old. He spent 5 years with San Diego, but spent 25 games this year with the Cubs. Let go by the Cubs, picked up by the Padres.
Richard, one of 4 lefties out of this bullpen for the Pods.
Freddie Galvis is the batter, and he lines the first pitch out toward left center field. Jankowski on the run. He's not going to get there. It's a one-hop over the wall. They're going to soften up that warning track a little bit. So leadoff double for Freddie Galvis, and Taylor Featherston is going to be the batter, the pinch hitter for the Phils.
Yeah, that has to feel good for Freddie.
Yeah, Freddie had been 0 for his last 14 before that hit. 17th double of the year. And now Featherston. Chops it foul, and it's 0-1. Featherston on the roster, of course, with Andres Blanco being out with the broken finger, the index finger. Saw Andres the other day at the ballpark. They checked out his finger. He's got the pin that's still in it. I was asking him, I said, when you did it, did you think that it was broken? He said, no. He goes, I just thought I needed stitches and I'd be fine. No balls and 1 strike. He said, but once they cleaned it, and just prior to stitching it, Scott Sheridan, the Phillies athletic trainer, said, you know what, let's just get an x-ray just to make sure there's nothing else wrong with that. And Andre said, all right. He was basically ready to get the stitches and walk out. They took the x-ray, and that's when they saw the broken bone, and that's when they realized they had to do surgery. He said he's feeling pretty good, though. Featherston strikes out. And with 1 out, we'll go back to the top of the order for Cesar Hernandez. It's time for our timeless moment. Here's Greg Murphy.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. It is indeed brought to you by Coors Banquet, our timeless moment. On this date in 1999, Tony Gwynn recorded career hit number 3,000 in a 12-10 Padres win. Of course, Gwynn would finish his career with 3,141 hits, but certainly that was a magical night, and our own Ben Davis was part of that magical night. He also went 2 for 5, by the way, Tom, in that game, and he had a double and an RBI in that game.
You remember all that?
And I'm sure that's all people could talk about after the game.
That's it. I do remember there were about 26 people there.
I saw the video of it today because they were, all the news outlets were talking about it being his anniversary, or the anniversary of his 3,000th hit. And I remember you saying that, and I saw the video, and it was empty.
Oh, it was empty, and it's a sad moment. But it was a humpback liner over second base, and then Tony took us all out for a giant steak dinner afterwards.
Did he really?
In Montreal.
I was just going to ask you what he did.
Oh, it was great.
There's the particulars on Tony Gwynn, Mr. Padre. 7-time Silver Slugger Award. 1 ball and 1 strike, and that ball is lined deep to left field. Dickerson going back, reaches up, it's off his glove. Galvis will score. Hernandez to second, RBI double. It's an 8-4 ball game. Second extra base hit of the inning for the Phils.
Scolded.
Freddie Galvis was already at third when that ball tipped off the glove of Dickerson, who covered a lot of ground to get back at that.
I can't believe he even got any leather on it. The ball was hit so hard. Freddie gets off there on his horse, scores easily.
Or maybe he was just shy of the third base bag. So a run back in on the RBI double by Hernandez. 27th RBI of the year. Here's Odubel Herrera. Odubel tonight is 0 for 2, struck out, hit by a pitch, flied out. Was that one of your favorite nights?
It was, and I kind of felt bad for T because He played a lot of years out here in obscurity. He really did. And to win 8 batting titles, and no one ever thinks of him as one of the best hitters of all time. And to end up getting 3,000 hits in Montreal in front of, and I say 26 people, but there couldn't have been any more than 3,000 people there.
Yeah.
You know, that's tough. You'd like to see that happen on a bigger stage.
Did he ever talk about that? Did he make it seem that it was frustrating?
No. But he is missed.
So he took everybody out for a steak dinner?
Whoever wanted to go, yeah.
Really?
There was a big old steakhouse right next to our hotel in Montreal, and we got after it.
I'm sure you ordered a small one just because you didn't want him to really get a huge bill. Tapper back to the mound. Richard bobbles, throws, not in time.
No sense of urgency there, was there?
He looked like he was moving in slow motion. That'll be the 3rd error of the game for the Padres.
It doesn't get any easier than this. Even in the pitcher's fielding practice in spring training, they're hit a heck of a lot harder than that. But no sense of urgency.
Well, Clayton Richards' return to San Diego is complete. He is responsible for the runners on base, so we've got a pitching change here in San Diego. Phillies have 2 runners on, 1 run is in, 1 man down here in the 7th inning. We'll be back right after this. Fathead will be given out to all fans coming to Citizens Bank Park. It's compliments of Toyota. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. It's all part of the Rockies series that weekend. It's Alumni Weekend at Citizens Bank Park. 8-4, Padres on top of the 7th inning. And the Padres go back to their bullpen. Their starter, Paul Clemens, only lasted 4+ innings. And now Brad Hand will take over. One lefty for another.
Our baby Mickey just got that same doll.
Maybe that's it. Isn't Mickey here?
It was a Phillies guy for his birthday on Sunday.
Happy birthday, Mickey, if you're back home watching at 10 after 11 Eastern time. Runner goes from second. The throw to third by Bethancourt, and he is
there's not a better arm in all of baseball than Bethancourt behind the plate.
Just not sure if that's the right move right there by Cesar Hernandez.
Not with 3, 4, 5 coming up.
And you're down by 4. You're in scoring position. Got him right on the arm. His hand is not on the base. You want everybody to be aggressive. You do, but that's just not a.
But if he goes up top here, it's 8-7 with 2 more cracks at it.
Ground ball foul.
And the Phillies have been pretty darn good recently in hitting that 3-run homer.
And you can see by the replay we showed you, he did not get a very good jump off second base. At least I didn't think he got a very good jump. Not because he got thrown out. Too is that Odubel didn't go from first.
No.
Now, you can say what you want about Cesar making a poor decision. That's not a good. That's not a good jump.
He's going from a dead stop. Usually, if you're going to steal third base, you have a little momentum going towards the bag.
Right, the other part of it is Odubel's got to go. Yes.
Yes. Because you know the play's going to be at third base. He can walk in second.
Ball and 2 strikes to Altair with a runner at first. Foul ball, and it remains 1-2. Well, I'm not sure if there's much more we can say about the base running without letting everybody just see it. I mean, it's obviously an issue.
Don't know what the thought process is there.
I don't know if there is a thought. I mean, I understand he's trying to get to third, thinking, all right, I can score on a wild pitch, or pass ball. But at this point, swing and a miss, or even a sacrifice fly because there's only one out. But it's just not a smart move. So the Phillies settle for 1 run in the inning. Time to stretch here in San Diego. If you haven't seen a highlight of it, I mean, it is immense. Out onto the concourse in left center field in Colorado. Here it's 8-4 Padres on top. Every time the Phillies retire, the opposition 1-2-3. Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. So David Hernandez will take over as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning here in San Diego. Hernandez with a 4.20 ERA. This is his 50th game of the season. And he will face Ryan Schimpf, Christian Bethancourt, and Alexi Ramirez. Schimpf had a sacrifice fly his last time up. He's also popped out to the catcher. He walked and scored. Eight to 4, Padres on top. him up on the first pitch. Freddie Galvis says he has it. 1 out.
He can hit some pop-ups, can he?
He sure can.
When he hit to Cameron Rupp earlier in the game, that was way up there.
And now Christian Bethancourt will be the hitter. Bethancourt is 2 for 3. Broke his bat. Shallow center field. Odubel Herrera. 2 quick outs here in the 7th inning for David Hernandez.
Surprised that ball went that far with Bailey. That bat was broken.
Thinking the same thing.
It sounded awful.
Buchter is warming up in the pen. Another one of those lefties who the Padres say it's just a coincidence that they have all the lefties. They don't have it for any design.
And I wouldn't say any one of them are specialists.
Alexi Ramirez is 0 for 3. First pitch fastball inside. 1 ball and no strikes. Ramirez has grounded out a couple times. Actually 3 times. Once into a fielder's choice. A line drive base hit up the middle. 2-out single. Brett Wallace will pinch hit for the Padres. Wallace had a pinch hit single in last night's ball game. Fastball 0-1. Phillies in their half of the 8th inning will have Maikel Franco, Ryan Howard, Cameron Rupp due up. Down by 4 at this point. Joseph might be utilized at some point as a pinch hitter.
Been busy blocking a lot of balls in the dirt tonight, hasn't he?
Carlos Ruiz most likely will catch tomorrow with Jared Eickhoff on the mound.
Done a nice job of those pitches in the dirt, though.
Swing and a miss. He goes after a high fastball, and the inning is over. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. We have completed 7. Maikel Franco will lead it off as we go to the 8th inning here in San Diego. to you by Toyota. The annual clearance sale is going on now. Toyota, let's go places. Find Jefferson. Call 800-JEFF now or visit jefferson.edu. And buy Chevrolet. Visit your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. Top of the 8th inning, it's 8-4 Padres on top. San Diego hosted the 92 All-Star game. They hosted the All-Star game this year as well. It's time now for our Hyundai defensive play of the game.
We'll take a look here. Betancourt to Solarte at third. Cesar Hernandez trying to steal third, down 4 runs in that 7th inning. It's a tough play. It's great if you make it, but if you don't, it ends a rally. That is your Hyundai defensive play of the game, brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers.
So now Buchter will take over here in the top of the 8th inning. Another lefty. And his first pitch low, 1 ball, no strikes. Buchter, 2.81 ERA. This is his 52nd game. Two balls and no strikes. Fastball, and it's 2-1. Shallow right field with the shift on. There's a lot of moving parts, and Schimpf is able to make the catch. 1 out here in the 8th inning. Tommy Joseph will pinch hit for Ryan Howard. It's time to get updated on what's going on around baseball. A very important moment out in Denver, Greg Murphy.
There is indeed, and we've got a lot to talk about. It's our greater coverage of baseball presented by T-Mobile, and well, there's New York Yankees have announced a press conference tomorrow, and the topic is the future of Alex Rodriguez. Now, they have not talked about the specifics of what this press conference will be about, but certainly has seen less playing time of late. So A-Rod and the front office is going to address where he's going to be in the near future and in the long-term future as well. Jason Worth, well, he just continues to get on base for the Washington Nationals. His on-base streak is now up to 37 games. That is best in all of baseball this year. And Tom, you mentioned that special moment in Colorado. Yes, indeed. 1 at-bat for Ichiro Suzuki tonight. He got a base hit in that at-bat. Base hit number 2,999 in his career. And if I'm not mistaken, that game is still going on, so he may get another at-bat before that game is all said and done.
Yeah, it turned out it was an infield single for Ichiro Suzuki.
Murph, did I really have 2 hits in that game that Tony Gwynn got his 3,000?
How did you not know that?
Yes, you did.
You think I'd remember that with the amount of hits that I had? You think you'd remember every one?
I mean, you had half of your hits in that game.
Well played, Murph.
Yeah, you did. You had 2 hits. You had a double early in the game. You had a double. And knocked in a run. And you also scored a run in that game, showing your wheels, too.
Wow.
By the way, Ichiro will bat second in the top of the 9th in that game in Colorado. So we will break in with a little, noise and everything if he gets the hit.
Shallow center field. Schimpf again. 2 outs. Tommy Joseph's retired.
He's had 2 high ones this inning, has Schimpf.
Yes, he has. What kind of noise Murph's going to break in with?
Those little clappers, those plastic clappers. Some pots and pans.
Cameron Rupp is the hitter with 2 outs. Rupp is 0 for 3. He's lined out, reached on an error, and he's grounded out to third. Bit low, 2-1. Hold up the blankets, Ben.
So funny to see folks walk around here with
blankets
and sweatshirts and the like.
Game-time temperature was in the 70s today. Dropping a little bit.
Could you live in this climate?
Could I?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
Couldn't you?
I like the Four Seasons.
They have one downtown. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Cameron Rupp ready. And he fouls it off to the right.
It was very, very odd playing here. Just, coming from where we live and having those Four Seasons, you would just think that every morning I woke up here, you think it has to be different. It has to be, and it never was.
Cloudy and then sunny. Swinging at a foul tip, and Rupp strikes out. Phillies are retired here in the 8th inning. Nothing across, 2 pop outs and a strikeout. We head to the bottom of the 8th, and the Padres hanging on to a 4-run lead over the Phils. Will take on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Then after the game, it's the first ever post-game concert at Citizens Bank Park. It features country music star Chase Rice. Get your tickets now by going to Phillies.com/Chase Rice. Now, your game ticket is your concert ticket. He is a rising star in country music. He's also a tremendous songwriter. If you remember the song Cruise that Florida Georgia Line sung, he wrote that. Jankowski takes a strike. It's 0-1. Saw Tommy Joseph stay in the game to play first base. Inside. Jankowski's been a problem tonight. He's got 3 hits. By the way, we have inside information that Greg Murphy may be sitting down with Chase Rice.
I would not doubt that.
For a hard-hitting preview interview about what he's going to do that night at the ballpark. Murphy going to find out what's on the set list that night?
I will do that, but I'm going to ask if he'll let me get up on stage with him, sing.
That's right, because you will be you are the lead vocalist if we had a band, correct?
That's right. That's right. So it'd be one very unsuccessful band, but
we just play loud. We play the instruments loud. 1 ball and 2 strikes. 2-2 to Jankowski. Side 3-2.
You mentioned Jankowski's 3 hits. He's also scored 3 runs.
He's on base again. After getting ahead 2 strikes, they lose him. And now you got to keep an eye on him because they're going to want to add another run here. Up by 4 in the bottom of the 8th inning.
The age-old adage is don't let a grand slam tie it.
Jankowski has 23 stolen bases this year. Pitch out, a pitch that was nearly back over the plate. 1 ball and no strikes. David talking to himself out on the mound.
I tell himself, I don't like pitch outs. Ball and Myers strikes out. So 1 out here in the 8th inning. Buckled him on the one before and buckled him again.
Are you surprised Jankowski hasn't gone yet, or you think he's waiting for a specific time to take off?
I don't think he can really get a good jump unless he's thinking, well, I know Myers is very adept at hitting the ball the right side. Maybe I'll keep this hole open for him. But how many have 2 lefties coming up right after that?
Goes, pitch is taken for a strike, throw to second base is also on 1 hop, not in time. I was about to say it was also a strike, but it took a bounce. Boy, it looked like he released that strong. Phillies will go to the phone to see if there was indeed a play at second base that they can ask for a review.
It's a great pitch to throw on. Oh.
It seemed like his hand got in ahead of the tag because the 1 hop throw cost Galvis, caused him to lift his glove up. Phillies have decided not to review it. Stolen base number 24 for Jankowski. Yeah, it looks like his hand's in there.
Like Freddie went over the top of his left hand there.
Second on 1 hop. Cesar gets to it, pirouettes, and then flips over the head of Tommy Joseph. Solarte did take a turn towards second. The throw to Tommy Joseph. He is out, and then going home is Jankowski. He'll score. for San Diego. It's the right call by the first base umpire because Solarte did turn towards second, but Tommy Joseph was just a little slow to apply that tag, and Jankowski, who's as quick as lightning, was able to get home.
Put on the brakes. Put on the jets. That's for sure. And he just steps off third base and heads home.
Solarte's clapping his hands as Tommy Joseph tagged him. Right there.
Tariq Brock went over to talk to Jordan Baker at first base. I didn't see any move towards. He did turn towards the left.
That's what I mean. It doesn't have to be like right there. See, that's the intent, and that's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be one step. It just has to be the intent with the body by rule.
Hardly ever see that play. Hardly ever.
Take another look at it. See right there.
There was right there, and then
swing and a miss. It goes down as a base hit. And the put out goes 4-1-3. No RBI. Now a line drive down the right field line. That's in for a base hit going to the corner. Dickerson's on his way to second, and he'll be there standing.
I really like him.
I think it's the same case as the Phillies, is that they have two guys in Dickerson and Jankowski that are center fielders. You know, one's playing left, but they have the speed. Jankowski definitely does, but Dickerson does too.
I think you're looking at a man who might find himself in the 3-hole before the end of the season. I would like to see a little bit better communication there by the Phillies on that play, though. Tommy Joseph had no idea Jankowski was on his way home.
Down low, 2-0. I don't know if there's a technique to make sure of it. You see Mauer warming up in the bullpen. He's been excellent of late for the Padres. You know, if you turn your body so you're looking at Jankowski as you walk towards Solarte, Solarte may then try to get into a rundown if he thinks that he did indeed make that turn.
Yeah, and Solarte was so far past the first base bag where you did have time knowing he's not going to beat you back to the bag before you apply the tag.
Right center field, playable for Altair. He'll call off Herrera. Last chance for the Phillies. They're down by 5 after the Padres score a run here in the 8th inning. On to the top of the 9th. Cody Ashley due to lead things off when we come back. Ben, we go all the way back to the first inning. This kind of broke it open against Jake Thompson.
It sure did. Bethencourt up here gets a hanger. It's in that left center field gap for the bases clearing double. Put the Padres up 4-0. It's a big hill for the Phillies to overcome there, but that is your W.B. Mason delivery of the game.
Hey, you look back at this game, the Phillies did make it a 4-3 ball game, and then in the bottom of the 5th inning, the Padres scored 2 and then scored 2 more in the 6th. So now after they scored 1 in the 8th inning, we go to the top of the 9th. Brandon Maurer on at his 52nd game. 4 saves. This is not a save situation. Padres are thinking we need to win. First pitch to Cody Asche is outside. 1 ball and no strikes. Asche tonight is 0 for 3. He's flied out. Fielder's choice, and he is struck out. Outside 2-0. Phillies have managed just 6 hits tonight. Slicing toward foul territory, and Ramirez can't get to it. 2-2. Tomorrow we'll wrap up the series here in San Diego. 4:30 on CSN. The big Sunday show gets everything started at 4 o'clock. Foul ball. Jared Eickhoff, you see him right there. He will start tomorrow. Jared Cozart. Philly just saw Cozart a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Over from the Marlins. She fouls that one back.
Good swings here by Cody.
And there's a fair ball down the right field line. And Cody's on his way to second base. And he is there standing with a leadoff double. So Maurer gives up a base hit. Don't forget, coming up after the ball game, Tommy Green is going to break down Jake Thompson's 4+ innings tonight. Only on Cure Auto Insurance presents Phillies Postgame Live. Galvis doubled his last time up and then scored. Jimmy Paredes is in the on-deck circle. Threw him a changeup after throwing a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. With 1 out, Jimmy Paredes is due up.
Goes from 96 to 87. Freddie way out in front. Just really gearing himself up for that heater that he was late on a couple pitches.
Brady's is 5 for 24 as a pinch hitter. He did start last night's ball game. Phillies are down to the last 2 outs here in the 9th inning. Gearing up for that fastball again. And Mauer, with all of the energy in that motion, delivers something a little softer.
It is just so hard to tell yourself to trust yourself, trust your hands. Because human nature tells me the harder you're going to throw it means that I have to go harder at you. You really don't. The good hitters don't.
Foul ball off the foot of Paredes. And it remains 2-2. Paul Clemens started tonight for the Padres and was lifted with 1 out in the 5th inning. Even though he had a lead when he was lifted with 1 out in the 5th inning. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Bethancourt out to talk to Mauer. That ball is ripped to right field, and it is a foul ball. Brady's will come back. Back to second base goes Cody Ashley with 1 out here in the 9th. Center field. Flash going back. It is gone. A home run for Jimmy Paredes. A 2-run shot. It's now a 9-6 ball game.
Did he have some aggressive swings?
That is the second pinch hit home run of the year for the Phils. And John Heinzel of Schwenksville, you've just won $100 thanks to Jimmy Paredes in the McDonald's home run jackpot.
Way to go, John. Fastball. I think that was a changeup up in the zone.
Yep.
Much different than the one he threw Freddie Galvis for the strikeout. That one way up in the zone.
Cesar Hernandez trying to go back-to-back. Swings through the first pitch. 0-1. Cesar doubled his last time up. Doubled home Freddie Galvis. Ball and 1 strike now to Cesar.
It is something, though. I mean, he really killed that ball. Killed it. And that would have just barely gotten out with the old fences.
The old fences, that's correct. It was a deep shot. Three balls and 2 strikes to Cesar. Phillies have made it a 3-run game. That's why look at the extra run they put on the board in the 8th inning. This day and age, those extra runs are huge. They've been ball 4, but Cesar took a hack at it. Ball 4. So Hernandez walks tonight. That's the second walk of the series for Cesar. And that'll bring Odubel Herrera to the plate. Aaron Balsley is heading out to talk to his right-hander. Over the last 21 outings, Mauer had allowed 2 earned runs in 23 innings. They have the longest active streak in Major League Baseball. Shocking. They've won their last 130 games when leading after 8. That surprise you?
Yeah.
Jose Dominguez, we saw him last night's ball game warming up in the pen.
And not just because it's the Padres and they've had a tough go of it over the last couple of years, but for any team to hold that kind of a streak. 130 games.
Odubel is 0 for 3, hit by a pitch in the 3rd. This was the first pitch and fouled it off, and it's 0-1.
It just seems like everything is
too fast for him.
Yeah.
To right center field. That time he slowed it down. Jankowski on the run. It is caught. Hernandez was already past second base, so he's got to go back to first, and he'll get back sliding. What a play by Jankowski, who's had himself one outstanding night, and his speed has been a huge factor in this ball game.
It sure has. Looking at a 8-6 ball game. Man on second base, possibly third base. But that is an excellent play. If anything, he was maybe a hair out in front, just a hair off the end, but still had good carry on that ball.
So now 2 outs, and Altair is the batter. Cesar Hernandez is fortunate that Alexi Ramirez did not throw that ball to first base. Altair is 0 for 4. Cesar goes, pitches a strike.
I guess he figured it was so deep that he knew he could get back.
I was shocked that he made the catch, though. I think that's his thought, too. Defensive indifference allows him to go to second. Not a stolen base. It's 0-2 now to Altair. We saw Jankowski last year. He seemed like he was overmatched for the Padres. Not so much this year. 0-2 pitch. Lays off 1-2. Kid from Lancaster Catholic. Maikel Franco is on deck. If Altherr gets on, Franco will represent the tying run. And a liner out toward left center field. Franco is going to get up. Hernandez will score from second, and Altherr will go to second base. An RBI double. And it's a 9-7 ball game. That play is even bigger now for Jankowski. Well, there is still hope for the Phillies.
Bethencourt's going to go out and do a little stalling right here. They have to get him out. He's not missing any barrels right now. How do you get on top of that? Pitch at 96 miles an hour, and he gets on top.
Yeah, and he figured he couldn't let it go by because the Mike Everitt strike zone has been up there tonight. So Hernandez scores 9-7. Alexi Ramirez must have said something to make Mauer laugh. And now Maikel Franco will be the batter. Franco today is 1 for 4. Phillies leader in home runs with 20. Dubel's ball lands. This could be even a much different game. Franco takes a strike, 0-1. That's a good take. Two.
Regardless of how this turns out, if the Phillies do end up coming out on the short end of this, they will have a little bit momentum offensively going into tomorrow's rubber game.
They scored 3 runs. The 0-2 pitch in the dirt, 1-2. Has to be the last batter for Mauer. Dominguez is ready to go in the bullpen. We saw him last night. Almost looked at like Eddie Rodriguez looking at a program in the dugout. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Ground ball toward first. This should do it. And Will Myers will take it to the bag. And the Padres hang on for a 9-7 victory. Their streak of wins when leading after 8 continues as they hold on to defeat the Phils by 2. Travis Jankowski is our Chevrolet player of the game for a lot of reasons. He scored an insurance run. He also just made an unbelievable